Hey guys, so I just got back from watching Ready Player One, which was probably one of my most anticipated movies of 2018, and I am very happy to say that I actually liked it a lot. Now, this is coming from a fan who actually read the book several years ago, and I've actually read it several times because I love it so much, by Ernest Cline. Now, this book is I would probably have to put it as my top 1 to 2 books of all time. Top one possibly being the Harry Potter series. But this one definitely competes for that top spot. I love this book so much. It captivates me every single time I read it, and the movie was definitely spot on. I won't say that it was a perfect rendition, a perfect shot-for-shot sort of remake of what the book tells us, but it does an amazing job overall. And I have to give it to the director, Steven Spielberg, who did a phenomenal job. Now, Steven Spielberg is one of the best directors of the past who knows how long. He's done so many great movies over his career. This is going to be one of those great movies, in my opinion. Definitely a monumental leap over his last movie that I reviewed, which was the BFG, which was probably one of the worst movies I've ever seen. But this one fully redeemed his career, not necessarily his career, but his stakes with me. I felt he was faltering a little bit, but he took on the reins of this massive story, and he absolutely knocked it out of the park. As for the rest of the cast, Ty Sheridan did a really good job of our main character, Parzival / Wade Watts. Every other character did actually pretty well. I'm really not going to get too much deep into the action, or like not necessarily the action, but the actors of the film, because it's very much back and forth, because we get to see about 50% in the real world and about 50% in the Oasis. But before I go ahead and get into the acting, let's go ahead and talk about the story first. Now, the story of Ready Player One is actually going to be very much different from the book, but it's very much similar. The tasks themselves are different, but the story is very much the same, as I'm sure they've probably 1,000 other YouTube reviews, and if you've read the book, you probably already know. But let's go ahead and give it a quick rundown. Wade Watts, like 2045 dystopian sort of future, lives in what's called stacks, which is basically parked on top of trailers on top of each other really high, skyscraper style. There's this video game called the Oasis, which essentially people can be fully immersed in, like VR style, and he has to save it and gets into sort of this contest to become the essential owner, I guess, of the Oasis. Really cool movie, really great book. This one knocked it out of the park again. So many good things to say. But I think what the best things that I can say about this movie are the fact that they really delve deep into just how immersive this world can be. That was something I was kind of concerned about when I saw the trailer. It's such a big story, so many different characters, franchises, things you kind of have to integrate into the story that because they're part of pop culture, you have to at least sort of reference them or have some sort of mention of them. This one did a really great job. It got a lot of those Steven Spielberg things in them, including the Rexy from Jurassic Park, but a lot of great things. King Kong, Batman, Harley Quinn, Iron Giant. There's so many references pop culture-wise in this movie that you have to watch it probably at least 5 or 6 times to even see most of it. Not even see all of it, but most of it. And this was absolutely one of my favorite things because I'm a big fan of pop culture. So being able to see all of these different things in one movie was actually one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And probably some of the best things that I liked the most about the movie was how different it was from the book. This one takes a lot of differences from the book. It's not that, like I said earlier, that shot-for-shot sort of retelling of the book, because some things have to change for the movies. I know a lot of purists don't like that, but it's just the way that it is. But this one, it made sense in a lot of the changes. The challenges were different. Some of the ways things happen in the story are different. But I didn't think that it was a bad thing. I actually quite enjoyed it. Haven't read the book in probably a couple of years now. I actually really wanted to reread it before the movie, but I figured since I've read it about 2-3 times already, there really wasn't necessarily necessary for me to do so. But I was really looking forward to it. And I remember a lot of great things about the movie, or about the book, that I wanted to see translated to the movie that kind of didn't happen, but it made up for it in other ways. For example, the challenges, one of the first challenges in the book is he has to sort of recite, essentially, war games. In the movie, they have to sort of go into the Shining world, which was probably one of the coolest scenes I've seen in a long time. But there's so much pop culture references, and the challenges are so interesting, and the way they're created, the things that these characters have to overcome. They have to think outside of the box in certain instances because that's the way the creator set it up. And I think that's probably one of the best things about it. It's technically amazing. Yes, it's very CGI heavy, but it's not a bad CGI heavy because we get immersed in the world where we know it's a video game. So of course it's going to be very CGI heavy, avatars, characters out the wazoo, you name it, but it doesn't necessarily translate badly when we go back into the real world and see these characters in real life. There's not that CGI character standing next to a real person, which makes it look really weird and obvious that it is so heavily CG. We know that there's that disconnect, and that's kind of what makes it so engaging, is because this is kind of the direction that our society now is going into with VR, augmented reality, you name it, and now we kind of get to see possibly where we could be heading in the future, and that's really exciting. I'm a big tech person, so being able to think that these video game characters that I like so much, or these pop culture things that I love so much, can become part of my daily life, not only like pop figures or posters, but being able to interact with them. And I think that's something that's really imaginative about the story itself, as well as the way it's presented in the movie. To be completely honest, Ready Player One definitely surprised me. I went in having some concerns, being a fan of the book, being very near and dear to my heart, one of my favorite books of all time, and being able to see it on the big screen. That's always a big thing that you sort of go into and feel that anxiety about. But this one knocked it out of the park. It had those changes, but it was necessary changes or worthwhile changes that sort of paid off in a lot of ways. And for that reason, Ready Player One, the grade I'm going to have to give it is going to be an A. I really don't have any negatives to say about Ready Player One. It really, really was an amazing movie. And I feel like the only things that weren't necessarily pushing it in that A+ category for me were those little nitpicky things because I'm a fan of the book. But I feel like this was hands down one of the best movies I've seen in a while. In terms of the technology that's used, the ideas presented, being one of my favorite books, this one had a lot going for it, and I think it definitely knocked it out of the park. So guys, those are pretty much my thoughts on Ready Player One. If you have seen it or read the book, whichever it may be, or both, be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. But other than that, that's all I have for now. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.